Alright, so after last drift event, I noticed that my shift knob is not sitting upright. So I think one of the bolts on one of the plates backed out, or something's up with the spring, or something moved down below. I'm not too sure, but I'm gonna figure out and take apart the shifter real fast. You can tell it's worse right here. I mean, it's moving this boot over. The moment of truth. I mean, yeah, it's pushed over here too. Is the whole entire transmission moved? The whole entire transmission moved. What did I do here? Did the transmission? One of the mounts must have moved or something. I guess I gotta lift this thing up. So the whole entire transmission and engine is tilted over. I think I got a bad engine mount. This engine mount that I thought was blown because the engine dropped on this side, it wasn't. It came detached, completely came apart. So instead of it dropping on the passenger side, it jumped up on the driver's side, or that's why it looked like it dropped on the passenger side because this side raised. Crazy. So I got two new polyurethane engine mounts and we're going to throw them in. I'm probably going to loosen up the bolt that goes into the transmission mount this way so it can twist a little bit, because it twisted with that bolt being tight and torqued down, so it probably wasn't the best for it in the first place. I was going to try many ways of removing the exhaust or removing the alternator, and I cannot get any tool on this stud up top. This will probably be the easier side, but I'm probably just gonna drain the coolant, take off the water pipe up top, and then I can have more room to actually take it off, but I do not want to do that. I'm probably just gonna drain it and then get more room up in there by taking off the water pipe and do it that way. And then I'll take off the headers to get to that bolt, or to get to that nut. I don't want to, but it's what I gotta do. I don't have the tools to get to it right now. So I've pulled off all the hoses that I can, and then drained all the coolant. Took off this hose, took off this hose, moved it out the way, moved a couple harnesses or connectors out the way. Took off the fuel pressure regulator. Now I got a long extension. I couldn't get it from coming up top, so I got it going straight ahead, just broke that loose. And this was a pain to get to. I dropped down my back part of the exhaust because I can't get to those bolts, and these just were going to be a lot easier to get to. I got all the nuts loose up top. I should just be able to take them all off and then drop it from the bottom. And then I can get the engine mount. I unplugged the O2 sensor from up top because I don't have my O2 sensor socket and I can't get it off with a wrench, so I had to do everything the difficult way. And that's what we needed. I could not get a dang wrench on this. I couldn't get a socket on it. This exhaust manifold was butted up right against it pretty much, and this is what I had to do, sadly. All the 4 bracket bolts loose because I couldn't get the nut loose on the actual bracket. I'll just get it out whenever. I'll get it off the bracket whenever it's off the car. These 4 bolts loose, ready to come out. This one's off on the bottom, so I'm gonna jack up the engine after that and slide this out. Got a piece of wood under here to disperse the weight, so I'm just gonna jack it up a little bit so I can have enough room to get it. This mount over here is also moving. I might be able to get this one without taking off the exhaust. I knew this other side was going to be the harder side, so I just did that first. Should be able to take that out. Couldn't get that inside the car. So there we go. So both these bottom nuts were not loose coming off, so I'm probably going to put some thread locker on them or something, but this whole entire engine mount is disconnected from the top. There we go. This thing came completely disattached, and this whole entire engine was just raised over there, so let's see if I can get this off and do it this way. So much for my breaker bar. I know it wasn't a good one, but yeah, that happened. Alright, I got PB Blaster on that bolt on there, and I can reach an extension on this one actually. Got it. So this is the mount. So this is why my transmission was very crooked. This mount was completely disconnected from it, and the whole entire engine was just raised up and sitting on the other mount. So this was the main problem. Before I do any of this and I put this new one back in, and the engine might tilt a little bit, or tilt more than it already is. I don't want this bolt to be binded up inside of that new mount that I put in, so I'm going to loosen this up and make sure that the transmission and engine can tilt freely without binding. Now I'm going to throw this new mount in, and I'm going to tighten up the bottom bolt first, hand tight, and then get the top bolt in and tighten that one up as well. I got the top one and I got the bottom one in with both the bolts tight on the bottom, and I led the stud in through the hole in the top part, so I can just drop the engine now, and it's going to be resting on the mounts without the studs being tight. Once you got the bottom bolts on, you can get the top bolts and just get them on with an extension. And you can get the same thing for the passenger side. I torqued down the upper nut to 40 foot-pounds and the lower nut to 72 foot-pounds on this little website for the Z1 engine mounts. And they want you to put Loctite on it. I did put Loctite on it. I was going to anyways because the bottom nuts were loose, and yeah, don't want that happening. I know that the engine mount was the fix to my problem because the transmission is actually sitting correct now. I'm going to torque the bolt that goes through the transmission mount because now the transmission and engine are sitting straight. I loosened it up so it could help it rotate, but now it's sitting correct. And like everything else, it's a lot easier going back in. Got the water pipe back in with the exhaust shield, and I took out this little dipstick cover as well earlier just to make it a little bit easier. And this bottom bolt for the water pipe, it was a pain to get out, so I had to get swivels to even get that bolt. You cannot get normal wrench or socket on it. If you can, then I don't know what type of wrench or socket it is, but I had to use swivels. Since I couldn't take off the cat, that was a process getting that lined up, but we got it in. Got this heavy exhaust back on with the heat shield. Now we're going back on with the water pipe. Now we can put all these boots back on, and my transmission is sitting straight now. I really thought the front right engine mount broke, but it ended up being the front left one, and it just was raised up on the left side. I didn't really feel any vibrations leaving the event. I only felt a vibration going to my buddy's house a couple days after, and the vibration only happened when it was around like 20 miles per hour, but there was nothing else, and that thing was completely disconnected, so I don't know how that was going on. Oh. Gotta start it, check for leaks, and see if we find anything. Gonna bleed this, bleed all the air out. I'm gonna let it warm up a little bit, and there's a screw right there to unscrew and let the air out. So I'm gonna let it warm up, screw it out a little bit, let the air out. Both fans are kicking on, car's warming up a little bit. Everything looks looking good, there's no leaks. It's also kind of hard to tell because it's been raining, but there is nothing under here. Alright, everything is all bled. I cracked that more than a couple times. This thing took super long to bleed all the air out and for the vents to get hot, but I got it going, and that's how you do it. The engine mounts are way harder than the automatic ones. Since I have a rear-wheel drive model, this one's under the exhaust manifold, and once you take off the exhaust shield over here, you can get to the bolt. It's way more difficult than the automatic model. Just beware, and if you want to make a special tool or do whatever you need to do to get to that without taking off the exhaust manifold, you can, but I didn't have the tools to do that, and I just took off the exhaust manifold and the water passage just to get it out of the way. Alright, thanks for watching.